We can fight all day and make love at night, 'cause we always figure it out, don't we? Yeah. And we're like the waves on a big blue stormy sea. We're a little messed up, baby, kinda up and down, and we keep falling till we hit the ground, but then we get back up again. Yeah, we're a little messed up, baby, it's never getting boring when we keep aiming for the stars, just you and me. We always get back up again. You and me, baby, you and me. You always leave me wanting more, baby. You and me were like the perfect storm, and you know that I can't get enough of you, no. Yeah, we're a little messed up, baby, kinda up and down, and we keep falling till we hit the ground, and then we always get back up again. We're a little messed up, baby, kinda up and down, and we keep falling till we hit the ground, but then we get back up again. Yeah, we're a little messed up, baby, it's never getting boring when we keep aiming for the stars, just you and me. We always get back up again. You and me. You and me.
Testing 1, 2. All right. So many buttons, man. Hold on. All right. Put the battle telly away. That thing is insane. All right, let's check our system here. Make sure, yeah, it looks like we got audio going through. We got stuff happening. Change that camera angle. Put my headphones so I can hear what you're hearing. Testing 1, 2. Testing 1, 2. Are you hearing me? Testing 1, 2. Testing 1, 2. Testing 1, 2. Looks like you're hearing me. Oh boy, man, I gotta get in shape. I just play a couple songs and warm up, and I'm already out of shape. Lucky I'm not gigging. So I'm being serious doo-doo. All right, give me a 1 in the chat. Make sure everything's working, and then we'll get started. We got a busy show tonight. We're going to talk about some home recording. It's been a hot topic a requested topic from me for a long time, but it's a big subject. There's a lot to cover. We're definitely not going to get through everything in this show, but we will try to cover as much as we can to get you started, to give you some quick tips on to make stuff sound, as good as it can be with a home setup. And you don't need a lot of money to get set up. Let's put it that way. We can get going pretty efficiently with not that much expense out of our pocket, let's say, when we get right down to brass tacks. So let me go back to the chat here, and we'll say hi to some folks, and we'll get the ball rolling. What do you think? All right. Wow. All right. Weekend is over. Monday is here. It was a busy day today at work. This is my office moving forward, but nevertheless, still work. So that was fun. Weekend was pretty busy as well. We did a lot of snowmobiling. Looks like we're going to get some pretty warm temperatures this week here, and so the snow will be melting quickly. So I'm not sure we're going to get out next weekend on the trails. The trails will be pretty rough if the snow melts. But it's supposed to get cold again, so who knows? We're probably going to be back and forth for most of the month, and probably some of April here in this part of the world anyway. That's the way it works. So we'll have to wait and see how things turn out. So anyway, Zach Thong, you made it in first tonight, my friend. There you are. Congratulations on being the first man in. And we got Mr. BH. I'm just going to say Bruce because you got to change that name because I can't say it, folks. But anyway, Bruce, good buddy. How's it going? I hope you're doing well. Terry Himes is in here. How's it going, Terry? I can't say that name, but he said he wasn't going to be able to stay for the live stream, but he will check it out later. It's a Falcon Blueser, I believe is how you say it. Thanks for jumping in anyway and checking out the show afterwards. I'm sure hopefully you can get some pointers if you're looking for any pointers on home recording. And we got R2. How's it going, R2? R2 is always jamming away. Got some great stuff online. Great player. Check him out. I Rocks the Blues in the house. How are you? There we are. And going down. And again, if you do have a specific thing I need to answer or something in the chat, just you know what to do. Tag me, basically. Put an @ sign in front of my name like that, and I should be able to see it quite easily compared to not doing that when I don't see anything. I need better glasses too, because these things are not getting old sucks, folks. Let's put it that way. Let's see. So I answered that for Bruce. The key we were playing in for the first jam was the key of C, and obviously it was played on the telly. And let's see, Janice Lala, how are you? I wonder if Janice is driving tonight. Every time she comes to the show, she's driving. Guitar Hack, how are you, my friend? It's getting warmer in Ontario, I see, so you must be happy about that. I know that you're not a big fan of winter, but it's going to come. Springtime is all just around the corner. Dale Palmer, how are you, Dale? Nice to see you. Let's see, Brad Egan. Oh, the chap just jumped quickly here. Let's go back. Brad Egan was where I left off. How are you doing, my friend? Hope you're doing well in the Ottawa region. And let's see, Guitar Man 45's in the house. How are you? Oh my God, we got a pretty good group in here tonight. We got Brian S. How's it going, Brian? Getting new guitars, Brian? Every time I turn around, he's selling or buying guitars. He's the wheeler dealer in the guitar world, I think now. I don't know what he's got next, but he's always got something coming, which is very cool. I'm still on the hunt for that Strat, but I haven't found it yet. It's coming, though. I'm sure I'm getting closer, because I did see a few that were posted actually this week. There was this pink one, pink relic, but it was a really faded pink, close to white. That's as close as I'm getting, but the price was actually not bad for the guitar, and it was exactly what I wanted, except for not being white. But I guess we're getting a little closer. All right, Janice is home. All right, so when I type 6-string Brian using my tablet, it shows it as a tag. Yeah, well, if you're using a tablet, who knows? I can't do that. When I'm on my iPad or iPhone, I can't do the one, tag people, so don't worry about it if you're on a tablet. I'll try to see your question as much as I can. All right, so let's get started with tonight's subject. So why don't we start with just a little bit of hardware, kind of the specifics of bare minimum of what you would need. And we're not talking about, there are mobile solutions where you can use a tablet or an iPad or, an iPhone or whatever. You can do some pretty crazy stuff these days with just mobile technology, but we're not talking about that. We're talking about getting started with a computer, whether that's a laptop, a desktop, whatever it is, an interface, and maybe adding in a mixer and some software, and then going about how we're setting up that software to really be, optimized for whatever system that we're going to be using. So I know there's other solutions out there like tablets and iPhones and things like that, but we're not going to look at that stuff today. We're just going to look, this is assuming you have a computer, which I'm assuming most of you do. And the computer doesn't have to be anything crazy. It can be, it doesn't have to be the top spec thing, because you're working with audio here, and audio is pretty forgiving when it comes to spec wise. You don't need the most RAM, you don't need some crazy graphic card or anything like that. You just need a good enough processor that will basically run, your typical programs that you run every day. If you can get a little bit of RAM, that's nice too, because that'll store a lot of the things in memory, so that it'll help with buffering and latencies and things of that nature if you're using a lot of plugins. And we're not going to get into some crazy amount of plugins today. We'll talk about it a little bit, but we're not going to go into great detail about, this plugin and that plugin and why you'd want to use this or that. We can do that maybe in the future shows when we go into the next, version of this topic, when we go to, let's say, level 2. We're talking about level 1 here and not talking about mobile. So let me see if I can, oops. I just want to bring up the iPhone camera so we can have a quick look at something. All right, unlock that. Do that. Do that. All right, so now I got to go to my iPhone. iPhone camera, where are you? There we are. Okay, cool. So basically, any type of laptop, I use a Mac laptop, and it's closed right now, but it's, it's a MacBook Pro. And MacBook Pros are great because when it comes to working with interfaces and things of that nature, they work awesome, because the drivers and stuff are, pretty much native to the Mac OS. So you're not in Windows. I haven't used the newest Windows, but previously when I used it, you'd have to go searching for drivers and all kinds of things for your interfaces. Sometimes things would work, sometimes it wouldn't. But anyway, most Windows machines are working fine, and you just got to get the right driver for whatever interface, and you're good to go. But if you do work with Macs, you tend to get away with a little bit more when it comes to drivers without having less fuss, let's say. So the key thing when you're working with audio, you want a good interface. An interface. You just don't want to plug directly into your computer, even though you probably could, but it wouldn't be that great because your computer only has a certain amount of processing power to work with. let's say, a guitar input or an amp or something like that, and there's not really an input on a computer. I mean, there's, mini jacks or whatever for headphones and things of that nature. So we tend to always go through an interface. And the interface doesn't have to be anything crazy. Like what I've got here, I've got two in front of me. You've got the Focusrite, which is this one, which is very, very affordable, by the way, for what you get. And then you've got the higher end stuff, which is the universal audio that sits on top here. And that's the one that I use. And the reason I've got two is I had the Focusrite first. I started with that a few years ago, and I worked my way up, and then basically for work-wise, I needed something a little bit more, that had more stuff in it as far as processing power. So I went with the UA. But I still use, as you can see, the light is still going on my Focusrite here. So it's still in use in my chain, but for the purpose of recording, when I'm recording guitar, bass, whatever, I only use this one. This is only a 2-channel, so there it is. But you could use a Focusrite 2-channel, a PreSonus, Behringer, anything like that has at least, I would say, always get 2 channels if you can. Always get 2 channels. I mean, you can get a single channel and do a lot with it, but at that point, if you're going to buy one anyway, get one with 2 channels. It's not that much more expensive, and trust me, you'll thank me in the long run if you get that, and you want to save $25 and you go get the single channel one, and then down the road you're like, oh shit, I should have got the other one, because there's things you can do with 2 channels at the same time when recording as far as efficiency that are going to help you down the road. So trust me on that. So you start out with some good interface. Any type of thing on the market today is pretty good as far as that goes. I mean, Behringers are cheaper. They don't have the same type of processors in them, but they work fine for what you're doing. So the way that I would suggest you go, if you can, like we're talking about, you've got the computer already, you don't have to go invest in that, but get yourself a good interface. And also, if you can swing it, that will give you much more flexibility down the road, is a mixer. And let me show you the mixer that I'm using. I don't know if this mic, you might lose my audio here, but I'm just going to go over there with the camera for a quick second to give you a look. All right, and you guys can probably still hear me here, but I'll come back to the mic right there. So the reason I like to tell people, try to use a mixer in your setup, because it doesn't have to be a 12-channel mixer, or it can be like a 4-channel mixer even. But what it does is it basically, you can run your 2 outputs of your mixer. So everything coming out of your mixer go into your interface, which is here. So you can have a left and right go into your channel 1 and 2 on your interface, and then plug all your devices, whether that's a bass, a guitar, a microphone, whatever, into the mixer channels. And that way you're controlling your levels. If you need to do a little bit of EQing on something, you've got it built into the mixer, and you can adjust per channel, do it that way. And all that is going to get fed into your interface here. And your interface, all you're really looking to do there is to capture that signal coming from your mixer. And you want to just get your levels right. And you can, with more fancy types of things like the universal audio interface, you can, put a plug-in in and put a compressor and all kinds of stuff in software. What I mean by that is, I'll show you, because every audio interface has software that comes with it, and in that software, it has a little mixer on like a software mixer, and you can adjust things there too. So I'll show you that in a bit. But anyway, you want to go from your mixer to your interface, and then plug all your devices into your mixer. So I've got my Helix going in there in 1 channel. I've got just a dry line. I've got a mic in there. This mic here is in that mixer, and it's going through my audio interface. And my computer is only seeing one audio source. It's seeing the universal audio. That's it. That's all it wants to see. And then I control everything from there. All right, let me just shut this part down here and go back to my camera, and we're going to look at the chat real quick to make sure I didn't miss anything. And then we're going to go into a little bit more depth about, once you've got your interface and you've got your mixer, what are the next important steps, let's say. So let me go here. All right, cool. Let me just shut that down. And I will put that here. Hold on. Cool. All right. So many devices. Okay. So let me just go back real quick here to the chat. We won't spend too much time here unless there's a question that I need to. All right. In and out. Okay. I'm just scanning it real quick to make sure I didn't miss anything. All right. Zach just bought a Zoom H1N. And that's another device, like your little handheld recorders and stuff, like Zoom devices are great as well, because you can go plug that USB into your computer and then plug your devices into the actual Zoom, like XLR wise, and use that as kind of an interface as well. It's not the same, not quite the same processing as what these interfaces that I just showed you, the Universal Audio and the Focusrite would have, but it still has a processor in there that can process the audio and bring it into a computer in a, efficient way. So that's a good way to do it. All right, let me just go back down. Cool. Okay, so Guitar Hack says, what if you have a USB mixer? A USB mixer can become your interface as well. And there's nothing wrong with doing it that way, because your computer will see that USB signal at either like channel 1, channel 2. Like it'll actually show you the channels of your mixer in your computer. So yes, you can use the mixer that I'm using. I'm not using it that way. I'm using it as completely analog going into my Universal Audio. And I find it, for me anyway, a better way of doing it. But if your mixer is USB and it can be used as an interface that way, you can definitely do that. It will not have the same processors as a dedicated audio interface like a Focusrite or Universal Audio. So the actual digital conversion, let's say, when it goes into your DAW, will not be the same type of quality that it will be. So just keep that in mind. I mean, there's some real expensive mixers now, like Tascam and some other stuff that's coming out that are just as good as these Universal Audio interfaces. So those types of mixers, yeah. But if it's just like a small little mixer or whatever that has a USB feature that you can put in your computer, it will not have the same processing power as these things, but it will work. It will work fine for that. Let's see. Okay. So yeah, Bruce says he has the 2i4 and works great. So 2i4 is a Focusrite interface, and they're very popular interfaces, and a lot of people use them. They work great, and they're not that hard to work with as far as the software that comes with it. So very good unit. All right. Okay, so I think I didn't miss any questions here, so let me go to the screens now. All right, let me see how I can do this. We can go to full app. All right, so, and I need to change that to, I wonder if I can do it this way. Studio One, maybe. All right. So then it comes to software. What is the DAW you want to use? DAW is a digital, workstation. Is basically, you can use free things or things that are pretty cheap when it comes to that stuff, like Reaper. Audacity is not the same type of thing. It does a lot of good stuff with audio, but it's not on the level of a dedicated DAW like this. The one that I'm using here is called Studio One. And for me, I like it because, once you start working with one and you get familiar with it, you tend to stick with that until it, if it becomes outdated and they don't update it and there's better things out there, that's fine. But for the most part, you stick with whatever you learn, because I would suggest that you don't go through, I want to use Reaper one day and I'm going to use Studio One the other day and I'm going to use whatever the other day. Stick with one and learn it well, because it'll be way better for you down the road, that you're not going to have to learn all these new interfaces and all these other things. So let me go and show you. So what you want to really do is set up your interface, or not your interface, but your DAW the first time, and save it as a template. So the way and we really won't get into a lot of details about step by step of how to do this, but typically every DAW you can add a track. You either double click in here or you go to the top where it says track and you can add a track like that. And each track you can see here, I don't know if you guys can see this as well on the screen that you're looking at, but each track down here, you can tell it, well, okay, I've only got 2 inputs, which is my universal audio. So I'm going to just choose input left and right, which is exactly what my interface is. Now, anything that's coming into that interface will be coming in here, and basically that track. So let's say bass here. When I recorded this, I put the bass in my mixer on a channel. Whatever channel I wanted, doesn't matter because they all come out and they come into my audio interface. And in my audio interface, my universal audio, it's line 1 and 2, and my DAW knows that as line 1 and 2, and I just pick it there. And whatever I'm doing with this audio interface, it will come as a track. So let me just play this. I don't know if you guys are going to hear it. So that was, this is like a cover song that I recorded, basically Fantasy by Aldanova. So the way that I did it was I just programmed the drums and I just used the drum program, put in the loop. We won't go into how to do that. We can do that another time or whatever. And then I added the drums here. Here's a track for drums. Basically, if I isolate that solo. Right, and then I just recorded a simple beat like that had the same tempo as the song. And then what I wanted to do is put a scratch guitar on it. I don't have the scratch guitar track here because this is the final piece, but I would put guitar in. So let me just go here. And you'll notice that the trick is with guitars, especially when you're recording guitars, is I always like to double them. But when I say double them is this track that you're hearing now, let's say guitar number 1, is only coming out one side. So then I'll record the second part, the second track, which is the same thing, but I pan it to the other side. And I leave it that way in the mix. So when you play both of them together, you get right, as opposed to and one of the tricks that I like to do when I'm recording guitars is, even though I'm doubling this same part here, I'll change the tone of the guitar a little bit on each. Like the right side will have a different, maybe a little higher end, and the other side will have a little bit different frequency that I'm playing with. And that way it kind of sits in the mix a little bit better. And there's a lot you can do with that to make your sound come out. And then if I want to thicken it up even more, I'll add another guitar track. So let's go to guitar number 3 here, and the first ones could be Les Pauls, and then I will go to guitar number 3 and I'll maybe make that a Telly, which I don't remember what I did when I did this one, but I think that's what it is. So basically you have 2 guitar tracks. Think of it as 2 guitar players on stage. They're both playing the same rhythm track, but they're playing it with different guitars with a little bit different sound, each coming out, their own side of the stage, is the way that I like to look at it. So if I listen to all 4 rhythm guitar parts together, you get right, and again, this is mixed. So when you're recording it, it's going to sound a little different, and you're going to go through the mixing phase, and you're going to add EQ, and you're going to do some stuff, and I'll teach you a little something with EQ that's going to really make a difference in your mix. Now, that sounds great and everything. The guitar, there it is. But then you add the bass. Right? So, and the bass is just added as a single track. I don't double the bass. I don't do anything funky with the bass. All I do is I record it dry, completely dry in my DAW. Basically, I go right into the mixer with my bass and I record it exactly that way. And what you're hearing now with the bass, let me just let me solo just the bass. Basically, I've added a little EQ to it, but it's pretty much dry. Right? So let me switch the screen so I can go to the mixer. I want to show you something with the equalizer, and this is a real important step that a lot of folks just don't do most of the time, or sometimes they forget, or they just don't do it right. So let me just go to my mixer screen. Hold on. Studio One, console. Okay. So this is the same software, Studio One, but now, because if you have two monitors, you can put your mixer on one side and your tracks that we were just looking at on the other side, and you can have both views, and makes it a lot more efficient that way. Okay, I've got so many screens open here, just bear with me. Okay, so if I do that, so now we're looking at the bass. Let me just highlight the bass track here, and you'll see that in the inserts, there is a plugin that I've added onto that. You can be just to add a little bit of emphasis on, like, maybe a little distortion or a little bit of edge to it or whatever, because again, I'm recording bass completely dry when it comes in there. And when you listen to it at first, you're like, man, that sounds like crap, just dry bass or whatever, it doesn't do anything. But you can add a little bit, and the way you add it is you just, you can go here, and then there's inserts basically in your channels right here. And if you hit plus, you can add all kinds of plugins, EQs, distortion things, whatever. You could even record your guitar completely dry, which is hard to do when you're playing a song like this, but some folks will do it. And basically, after the track is recorded, they'll come in and add an amp sim or something, just whatever sound they want. But anyway, we're going off completely a different topic here. But what I wanted to show you is the guitars themselves, they have to sit in the mix basically in a certain frequency. So let me bring up that EQ. Are you guys seeing this EQ? Make sure you guys are seeing that EQ. No, you're not. Okay, let me just do one quick change. Bear with me here. Second display. That. Okay, so you should see that EQ right there. Every guitar that you record in there, what you want to do is always, no matter what EQ you're using, you can always take some of the low end out. Because if you leave that low end in the guitar, you're sitting in another part of the mix that the bass is supposed to sit in. And it's going to sound crazy muddy. Even though to your ear when you're playing it, it sounds good, you want to get rid of that low end. So as you can see here, this part of the EQ, the first part, there's a huge, it dips down really low. So I'm getting rid of a lot of frequencies in the low end. And I'm just focusing the guitar more in the mids. So you'll see I bumped up the mids a little bit where that little yellow dot is, and the other sections here. And even the high end, I dump it off a little bit, because if you can take out a little bit of the top part of the high end, you're taking away some of that hissing and that fuzziness that sits in a distorted guitar track. Sometimes we don't need to be in a track, because it just takes up frequency that is going to make your track messy at the end of the day. So you take out that low end, and yeah, you're going to listen to it and you're going to say, I like having that low end in the guitar, but trust me, if you take that out and then when you play the bass sits in the mix perfectly. So let me see if I bypass something here. It's going to be a little hard because I'm looking at so many screens. Let me see. So if I click here. That's just the bass. All right, let me just... All right, cool. So essentially, what you're doing when you're working with EQ guitars, you're taking out some lows, a lot of lows, probably more than what you think you should when you're listening to it isolated. But in the mix, it makes sense because when you add your bass, it's going to come in beautifully and it's going to make it sound full, and your guitars are not going to sound muddy. And it's going to have an edge to it, especially when it's distorted guitars you're playing with. So if there's anything you can take away from all this, I know there's a lot of stuff when we're talking about this stuff. If you're new to it, if there's anything you take away, is when you record your guitars, always go in after your guitar track is done, put an EQ on it, get rid of that low end, and take off some of the top end that would have some of that hissing and sizzle or whatever, and work the guitars in the mids. It'll sound weird to your ears when you add more mids than you usually do, but keep it that way because in the mix, it's going to make a difference. And then the other tip I would have for you when it comes to recording guitars is try to record, if you do have the option, some people don't have that option, but if you have a different guitar, like a completely different, like a Telecaster and a Les Paul, they're completely different beasts. But when you record them together on one track on one and the other one has the other, and you mix all that together, it's when you're really going to get some really good definition in your guitar tone and your guitar sound. So, all right, let me go back here for a second. And I know I'm going through this quickly, but there's just so much stuff to cover, and I'm trying to just give you the key points, and then one day I'll do a longer stream that is just dedicated to step by step, starting from scratch and then adding a track, and we'll actually record a song together, but that would take way more time than what we have here. So, all right, let me go back to the chat real quick just to make sure I'm not missing anything. Where are you, chat? Okay, cool. Let's see, make sure we've got everybody. Cool. All right. Don't think I missed anything. Mitch says he used Reaper last night, managed to get a third track recording. When I open my project back up, I get no noise from my drum track. Can't find any answers. Yeah, that is strange. If you have a drum track, just make sure that it's highlighted on the track itself and that it's not soloed or muted, because each track has, if you look at the tracks here, I don't know if you've seen this screen, each track has a mute, solo, record, and monitor little buttons on the top of it. And when you hit those, you're basically muting one track or soloing one or whatever. So make sure, just go back and look at all your tracks, Mitch, and make sure you don't have something that is basically muted, and yet that's why you're not hearing the drums, or you're soloing another track and it's not letting you hear the drums. So have a quick look at that. All right. So I get a lot of questions on when I record a cover song, what is it that I'm recording? Because I don't sing. I only sang one and I'm not really good at it. So, but this song per se, I'm not going to sing this song, but what am I doing? How am I getting these tracks or whatever? For me, the vocals, I go to a site called mykaraoke.net, I believe it's called. I find a track that I want and I buy that track. And it's basically a band that went in and recorded that track, and it recorded it. So when you buy it at $1.99 or $3 or whatever it is for, let's say, this song here, you can download each individual track separately. So maybe I just need the vocals. In my case, I just needed the vocals. And maybe you want the drums with it. You don't want to program your own drums. That's fine too. So you would download the vocals and the drum. And then it basically gives you an MP3 file of that. Then you would drag it in. So let's say like the vocals are all here. So let's say I solo these vocals. This is what I basically, not the lead, just the vocal.
Right.
Hold on.
Neon lights shining brightly makes your brain ignite.
So I just dragged that into my DAW here and it created a track and I called it vocals. And then from there, I start to build. So I recorded my drums. You can download the drums and just drag those in. So now you've got vocals and drums ready to go. And if you're not a bass player and you don't want to do bass, you can do that to the bass and bring that in. Now you've got the basis of your track in your DAW that you can start to work with, and then you can start recording all your guitars, do your leads and all that stuff. That's the easy way of doing covers. If you can get it at that site that's called mykaraoke.net, I believe is the site that I got these tracks from. and it's a great way to basically learn your DAW. You don't have to, you can start writing and doing a song and seeing something come out of it right away. So I would suggest maybe doing that, because not everybody's going to write an original song right away and put it and try to learn a DAW and all this stuff. So maybe just find a real simple song that you like, that as far as like the guitar parts. Go to that site, see if it's available, and then download it. Download it in pieces. Basically, you can download the full mix or just the pieces you want. So download the vocals and drums and bass and whatever it is that you don't want to play yourself. And all you do is you drag them into your DAW. You drag them into this section here, and basically it'll create the track for you and everything. Most DAWs do that. This one does it. I'm pretty sure Reaper does the same thing, Pro Tools and all that stuff. So you can get started real quick when you're doing it that way, and you just basically start to build your track. All right, let me go here to see if there's any questions. Terry says, I like that you're mainly a bass player, because when you're doing your mixes like this, you can divide the guitars and bass up properly in a mix. It's very important, because what happens is a lot of times as a guitar player, you have a certain guitar tone and a guitar sound that you like, and you have that in your head. And when you're playing along to just jamming in your room or whatever it is, you have that set up in your amp and it sounds great and everything. But it's completely different when you're recording, because you have to remember that guitar and that bass and whatever other instrument you're throwing in there, a mandolin and all these other things, they all sit in their own little pocket of frequency. And if my guitar has a lot of low end in it, it's going to kind of sit within the bass, and it's going to muddy up that low end so much that when you play it in a car stereo or whatever stereo it is after you're done with it and you start cranking it up, all that low end is going to get really lost as far as the definition that you would get when you're starting to play with the frequencies in an EQ. So keep that in mind. Even you'll play the guitar and you'll change it in the EQ and you'll say, man, that sounds like crap. Just isolating that guitar track up alone, like you say, it doesn't have enough low end, it has too much mids, all that stuff. But once you start combining all these other tracks in it, you're going to see it's going to stand out more than ever. It's basically really cool what it does. All right, so let me just go back real quick. Okay, I'm going to get rid of this screen for now. Go here, sitting here. Cool. See if I can hide that. Probably not. Let's see. Hide. All right, cool. All right, I just need to see the chat on a different window, because there's too many windows in front of me here. Let's go back. Man, there's a lot of stuff going on in the chat. Sorry, when I've been rambling on, I missed a lot of stuff here. So I'm going to try to get a few of these questions answered before we move on too far. We don't have that much time. Look at all the time that took just to go through these few little things that I looked at. And I went through them fast because time, but there's way more that we can do here that will kind of help you out. But we'll save that on another show, and we'll kind of dedicate a little bit more time to doing it. R2 says GarageBand or Logic DAW for Apple users. Yeah, a Logic Pro. Yeah, Logic Pro is the one that you would want to get if you're an Apple user. It's not that expensive, and it's fully featured. It's as good as any Pro Tools rig as I've ever used. I use PreSonus Studio One because I started using it and I just got used to using it, which is why I stuck with it. But if I wasn't using that, I'd probably be using Logic Pro because I am on a Mac and it works so well on Macs. GarageBand is great as well, just not as feature rich as a Logic Pro would be, as far as that goes. But, a lot of people use GarageBand and get a lot of great results with that. So let's go down a little bit, make sure I didn't miss anything. And Mitch says good time. Okay, I saw that one. Guitar Hack says humbucker and single coil is always a good blend. That's for sure. I mean, try to use different guitars in every track that you play. Even if you only did one guitar track, you had one left would be your Les Paul and the right track could be the Tele. That's totally fine too. I always like to put, like, if I'm doing a Les Paul side or a Les Paul track, I would do a Les Paul with, right and left. and then I would add a Telecaster, and I'd go right and left with that one. So there'd be like 4 separate guitar tracks showing up, and then I would EQ each one a little differently, take out the lows, take out a little bit of these highs, and then work with that within the EQ and really get it to sit in the mix really well. Gussie says, when you pan left and right, do you move the microphones to different areas of the speakers? Okay, so another thing I should make clear is that I use a Helix. For the majority of the recording that I've done so far, I've used my Helix. And when it comes to the Helix, you're using stuff like IRs, virtual cabs and stuff. And there you can select different mics, different positions of the mics and that stuff. So yes, I do that, but it's not like I actually have a physical amp in front of me and I'm moving a mic around to different parts of the speaker cone. It's all done virtually. That's a nice thing with the amp modelers, is that when you're playing and you're recording, it goes directly into your mixer. You're not fussing around with too much stuff that you need to, like your room doesn't have to be completely treated acoustically. Because if I have an amp in here and I'm miking that, I'm going to have to do a lot of stuff to this room to make some of the resonance coming off the walls, the floor and all that disappear, so that I get a good clean sound coming to the mic, to the mixer, into the computer, basically. So the benefits of using a modeler or something like that is it's all done within the modeler and goes directly into your DAW, and you're not fussing with a lot of that stuff. And I guess I would challenge anybody that, if it doesn't have to be me, it could be Robert Baker, it could be anybody that uses an Axe FX or whatever modeler you want, a good setup, like an amp that you've got set up there, like a good Marshall sound or whatever, and play it in a DAW, and then do the same thing with an amp and put it in the DAW. And I challenge anybody to tell me what the difference is. Like, it's so hard to tell. Like, you can't tell. If you're sitting in the room, that's a different story. If I have my modeler going through a PA and I'm playing, and then Joe below next to me has a full Marshall stack and he's playing, yeah, you're gonna tell the difference. But when it's going directly into a DAW from either an SM57 from your speaker, or I've got a setup on my Helix to make it that sound, you're not going to tell the difference. There's no way. So that's what I do. So Gussie, long answer to your question is, I do it virtually. I move my mics. I use different mics and different cabs in my Helix, and basically I can spread that around whatever track I'm recording. Let's see, go down a bit. Go down a little bit more. Bear with me, folks. I'm just trying to catch up with the chat, make sure. Shake Your Guitar Tutorials, how are you? It's a new name. I haven't seen that name before, but welcome. Okay, going down. Guitar Hack says, and this is why I get other folks to mix my stuff. Yeah, well, if you've got that resource, that's great. But if you can do some of it yourself and you start to learn really basic stuff, man, you'd be really surprised of how much you can do like yourself once you start understanding the basic stuff about mixing. Is that frequency. Getting out of other instruments' frequency range is key to that final mix, to how that's going to sound. Even the drums. My drum track, I use a program called Easy Drummer, and it's real drummers that went into the studio and recorded all these loops or whatever it is, and I put it together in that program, and then I drag it into my DAW as a completed drum track. But even there, I'll put an EQ on the drum track, and I'll start to play with some of those frequencies, to try to take out some of the maybe hi-hat, like hisses or whatever, that I want to take a little bit of that out of the mix or whatever. So you can really adjust any track. It doesn't matter if it's guitar, bass, vocals, drums. With an EQ, you really can get it to sit where you want in the mix by isolating it, playing with the EQ a little bit, then putting everything back together, and then listening and saying, okay, I think I can bump up that bass drum a little bit so that it has a little bit more mid, so it'll give you that crack, clack, clack. And then you can adjust that in EQ, which is really, really beneficial in the final mix because it's going to stand out. So even with virtual drums, I'm doing that. So the EQ part is so important because you can separate those frequencies easily. Ricky Compton, how are you? Nice to see you, my friend. Going down. Shaky Guitar Tutorial says, wish I had all those tools. No, and you don't need all these tools. Like again, I said basically all you need is a laptop or a computer, whatever computer you have, and some sort of interface, and pick a DAW. Like it doesn't matter. Like it can be Reaper. Reaper is really cheap. If you can get a free version, but I would suggest just buy the version. I think it's a $60 thing, which opens up the whole program, and get started that way. So for very little money, you can get started, and then basically, and when you're buying a DAW like Reaper, or even if you're using GarageBand or whatever, it has built-in EQs and stuff like that. So it's not like you have to go in and buy all these plugins. They come with a lot of the stuff there. You just have to learn, okay, here's my track. This is how I load a plugin. Once you get around that little hurdle, it makes things a lot easier, and you're not going to be struggling that much. So keep that in mind. You don't need a whole lot of money. You don't need all this stuff that I have in front of me. I have it because it's what I do for a living, not the recording, music like rock bands and stuff. I do it because I do a lot of video editing and live streaming and that type of stuff for work. So I need a lot of these tools, and I have them here. But you don't need all that stuff. You can just buy a real $100 interface, and whatever amp you have, you can put a mic right into the interface and start that way. And just, get familiar with the software is more important than anything else, I believe. Let's see, go down. Oh my, that went fast. Okay. And you can use different things for drums. I mean, you can use a drum machine, you can use a drum program, you can use real drums if you want. I mean, if you had an electric drum kit, you could plug that USB into whatever interface, or directly into an interface or your computer, and bring it up in your DAW, and you'd have all your drums there. I don't think I'd get into recording like acoustic drums unless you had the room for it and you had all the mics, and that's a big setup. But these days you can get a drum program like Easy Drummer for fairly cheap. Like it's not, I mean, not cheap, but it's a couple $100. But what you get with that couple $100 is basically you don't need to worry about drums anymore. You've got everything you need as far as drum programming, sounds, different kits and everything. So you can do a lot these days without putting a whole acoustic drum set in your bedroom trying to record. Let's see. Reaper has a drum section. Well, I don't know if Reaper has a built-in drum plugin, and then you buy the drum program separately than your DAW. So Easy Drummer is its own thing, but it incorporates with whatever DAW you're using. You can just load it up either way, but it's a separate piece of software. Let's go down. Yeah, I do a lot of originals. I just wanted to show that track tonight anyway because I had it set up and loaded anyway. Think of it when I'm recording covers, I'm doing the same process. I'm basically recording all my parts, going in and EQing things out that I don't want or whatever. And the drum tracks, the key with a drum track is you don't need to figure out your whole drum track. You just come up with the tempo that you want, find a loop that's going to allow you to record all your rhythm parts, and put that throughout the whole track. Once you record all your guitar parts, then go in and take out, okay, I'm going to make my chorus different in the drums, and then start working on that. But, then really fine-tuning the drums. I want to roll here. I want more hi-hat here, whatever. Then adjust it at that point. But just to get started and to do your rhythm guitar tracks, just pick a loop in a drum and expand it for 3 minutes, however long your song is, and put it in there. And then start recording your guitars, and if you want to do your bass and stuff, you can do that as well. Is there a way to cheat? To use a guitar to play bass? I mean, you could use an octave pedal or something like that, and it's just not the same. You can, you could. I don't think, I can't think of it that way because I'm a bass player, so I tend to play my bass parts. But if you didn't have a bass and you needed to record something and you wanted to get a bass frequency, you could technically use a guitar and run it through an octave pedal or something like that, and adjust the EQ in your DAW to make it as close to that frequency. But a bass has its own character, and it's, I don't know, it'd be kind of, it's different. But you could technically, to get around, if you didn't have a bass, you could do that. Hey, Pooh. Guitar should sit nicely above the mix. It's about 7.5 to 14 dB. Yeah. Well, I don't know if it should sit above the mix, but I think it needs its own place in the mix for sure to really stand out and not be muddied up. What about panning? Just for a question. Panning. Shake your guitar tutorials. What about panning? You say just for a question. I'm not sure. I must have missed something. I'll keep going down here. If I see your other part of your question, I will answer it. I don't know what exactly you're asking. Guitar Hack says it's the same situation when you play live. All instruments have their own. Yeah, it is. It's for sure that way. Live is a little different sometimes because the room and everything is factored into that point. So sometimes it's hard because you can't hear yourself on stage and you start cranking, the other guy cranks, and then you're all sitting everywhere in the mix. So it's a little harder unless you've got a really good sound guy. Mitch Heyman says, nothing is muted on the drum track. Maybe I'll try a free version of Studio One. Yeah, I mean, if you heard the drum track yesterday when you did it, Mitch, there's something going on. I mean, it's not you. It's not Studio One that's going to fix it, obviously. But yeah, check it out. Check it out. The free version of Studio One is get you started, and maybe it'll be a little easier to use as far as the interface. Every interface is a little different, and people tend to gravitate towards whatever they're comfortable with. So try a few of them out. If you've never done this, I definitely say, try a few of them just to begin with, and then stick to whatever one that kind of you click with and that you're comfortable using at that point. Don't keep going back and forth. I did that when I started, and it was like, no, that's not right. All my originals are done with GarageBand. Guitar Hack says, yeah, absolutely. GarageBand is a great program. Comes with all your Macs, so you get started right away. And once you learn GarageBand, if you go into Logic Pro as your next step or whatever, you're already, halfway through the battle of learning, because they have a lot of the same things in it. How you do things are, pretty much the same. It's just they have different features. Don't fear the Reaper. Yeah. Okay. So R2 recently upgraded to Logic Pro. Yeah, it's a great program. I would highly suggest people check it out if you have a Mac. No problem, Gussie. I'm going over this stuff fairly quick, and this is really high level. I mean, we can dig deep into, and what I'd like you to do in the comments section of this video, if you're interested, put in there specific things that you're looking to learn or that you have a question about, and that'll give me a real good gauge of what to focus in when we go into like maybe a show like this, or we do a dedicated show just on a few of these topics that I get a lot of comments on, that I say, okay, people seem to want to learn how to make a track from scratch, or whatever it is, the subject that they really want to focus in on. That'll give me a really good gauge on what to highlight in the next shows. So if you could do that, that'd be great. Let's see. Go down. Salut, BB Ninja. How are ya? Nice to see you. It's been a while. Late night in studio. Okay. A guitar tutorial says, my interface is the Zoom H4n. So far, I love it. Okay, yeah. There you go. The Zoom interfaces are really good. And what I like about the Zoom stuff as well, is that they're portable and you can take them with you. Take them to a rehearsal and plug them in, and you can record different, I can record a couple of guitars in there, and maybe a couple of mics, stereo mics on the drums, and just put them all into the Zoom, and you can do that kind of on the run type of thing. But you can use it as an interface, and it works great. If you have one of those, definitely use them. Mitch says it's amazing how good these drum tracks sound. Well, they are, depending on what drum program you're using, and a lot of drum programs now are using similar systems, they're real drummers. They're real drummers that went into these real expensive studios and used all kinds of kits and mics, and the sound rooms and everything they recorded these in are just insanely, like the top of the line stuff, and top drummers went in and recorded all these parts. And whatever song you have in your head or whatever song has been recorded, there's a beat that somebody's done for it already in one of these programs. And Easy Drummer, the way it works is when you buy Easy Drummer, you get a bunch of them, but then you can buy add-on packs. So let's say you're more of a metal player. You can go on Tune Tracks, is the company that makes Easy Drummer, and Tune Tracks go into the drum section and say, I'm looking for more metal stuff. And then they'll have a whole section of, here's Bob Rock's top, metal drummers or whatever, and it'll have a bunch of stuff in there just for that, and the sounds are insanely good. Like, it's nothing that you would be able to achieve in your house, let's say, as a drummer, and putting it in a studio environment and trying to come up with, you wouldn't be able to do it. So they're really, really good what they've done with the drum programs, and they're not hard to program. I mean, the first couple of times you're going to do it, you're going to struggle, you're going to say, how does this work? But once you start to get your head around how you build a song out of just loops, drum loops that come in these programs, and then go into each loop and say, I want the snare a little higher, I want the hi-hat to hit twice here instead of once, and you start to learn how to do that, then it's not that bad after that. You start to really get around it real quick. R2 says you can't ask a bass player that. I'm not sure what, I must have missed a question. Bass need, yeah. You need a bass. I think you're referring to the question that Dale asked about recording bass with a guitar. That's why I have a hard time answering that, because it's kind of counter my instinct when it comes to that. You want a bass. Trust me, the bass is the foundation of everything that is recorded there. And even in a live situation, you go see a band play live, take out the bass out of that stage, and you're missing that foundation, so you really want to get that part right. Let's see. Boss RC5 and save money on the bass player. Yeah, BV Ninja, you could do it that way, but I don't know. I'd rather just pick up my bass and record the bass parts. I guess it's in my DNA as a bass player. Mitch says maybe it would be easier on you just to do a video tutorial and post it up. Yeah, I could do that. Sometimes it's better if we just focus on one section of the recording process and do it live so that we can answer questions as we go along. But this was just a real quick overview and kind of just jumping into it and covering a lot of topics at once. But definitely, there's different ways of doing it. I could record just an hour video on just let's build a track and from scratch. But when you're taking questions and stuff, it's hard to keep up. Blackjack Guitar Nut, how are you? There, see that? Cool. Mitch says MT Power Kit is what he's using as far as the drum, and it's free. So there you go. Somebody was asking about drums, shake your guitar tutorials. There you go. Check out that. Mitch Heyman just posted MT Power Kit. It's a free drum program. So there you go. For anybody who wants to start to playing around with drums, that's an option. BV Ninja says Superior Drummer is by far fully free. Yeah, Superior Drummer is by the same company that does Easy Drummer, and it has a lot more features and stuff. I haven't bought that one, and I haven't really played with it, so I'm just sticking with Easy Drummer just because I can do everything with Easy Drummer, and I haven't really had the need to go past that. But definitely, I know a lot of people that use Superior Drummer, and there's a lot more features there if you really want to get into it as far as drumming goes. Let's see, a few more questions and then we'll call it. We're already at, it's already an hour, just over an hour we've been going. So we'll just go over a few more questions and then we will call it a night. BV says, for Gussie Wells, you understand panning in a mix is not moving mics on it. Yeah, definitely that's not what I'm saying. Panning in a mix means you've already got your sound on guitar number one. But if you want to make let's say guitar number one, you have a right and a left channel. And your left channel, you're using an SM57 and you've got a center cone. And then you want to record that same guitar part using the same guitar. Maybe you use a Royer 121 or a different mic altogether, and you pan that track all the way to the, right? Or one to the left and one to the right using different mics and stuff. You can do that if that's the case. So that's an option. I'm not sure if that's what Gussie was talking about. But to get different tones on your guitar, obviously you could, if you're using an amp, move the mic around and you're going to get different tones depending on where the speaker is hitting. Let's see. Brad Egan says, Brian, describe the time when you and I visited the Livewire mobile rig that had recorded AC/DC at SARS dock, bass removed. I don't remember. I don't remember that. I'm trying to remember. Visited the Livewire mobile rig. I'm not sure. Let me think about that. I'm not sure. I'm missing something. I was just kidding about the bass player. Right? I know. That's no problem, my friend. I've got a strong point. I have a strong piece of bass in my heart that will never leave. Let's put it that way. Yeah, Brad, you've been quiet tonight. What's going on, my friend? Just hanging out, which is all good. It's all good. All right. Well, that was a fun show, but it was a lot to cover, and that's what it's hard to do these topics in a 1 hour type of thing and try to cover everything. This is just kind of a quick overview again. I'd like to really dive in deep into just one specific part of this chain that we've talked about. So whether that's how do I plug my interface and get the most out of that, and how maybe incorporate a mixer into the thing and how I use that. That could be a whole topic in itself, just that part. So something to look at in the future shows. If you guys like this type of stuff, again, go in the comments and let me know. And let me know if there's something specific that I touched on that you want more detail on, or I didn't cover that you were hoping to get a little bit of information on. And I will do my best. Like, again, I'm not Rick Beato here that on that level when it comes to recording this stuff. I know the basics. I've recorded in my own setup here, and I've recorded in professional studios. So I kind of have a little bit of an understanding of the process and how things go as far as getting, most efficient use of your time when you're doing these things, and the easiest way to kind of get around certain things that are, tentatively really hard when people start to overthink a lot of the stuff. So let me know in the comments specifically if there's something you'd like to touch on a little further, and that'll give me a guide on future shows to maybe dive a little deeper on one specific part. All right, Gussie, yeah, I thought that's what you were referring to as well. Guitar X, when I break 2 strings, I become a bass player. Not quite. Not quite. That's okay. R2, glad you enjoyed that. Again, it's just so much to cover in a little time that we've had here. Oh, yes. Okay, Brad. I remember now. It was at the conference center when we went to that show. Yeah. Man, that's a long time ago. We're getting old. You're like, this would be, when would that was in the 90s. Wow, that's a long time ago. But now I remember the mobile studio in a tractor trailer that was set up in that. It was a big exhibition hall. It was like almost like a mini NAMM, they would call it, in Toronto. And me and Brad attended that, and yeah, we got to see some stuff there. And so, but I don't remember it. Like, I don't remember it very well. That's a long time ago. Long time ago. Thanks, Bruce. Thank you, everybody, for jumping in here. I think Dale says, I think it was a Shure SM50. Oh, are you talking to Janice about something? Okay, cool. Metalhead Hippie, what's going on, my friend? Hope you're doing well. Guitar Hack, good tips, good. I'm glad I gave some tips there you could walk away with and have some value there. That's the main point of this type of content or this type of show, is to give you something you walk away with of value of some sort, even though it might not cover everything that you're looking for. I think the easiest, well, not the easiest, but some of the best ones that I've looked at tutorial wise is where they go from scratch. The simple thing is, I'm plugging my guitar in here and let's see how that sounds, and they're letting you see that whole process, and then they show you, okay, I'm going to add a track. This is how I add a track, and they do that, and you see the track show up. He plays a little bit. You see the signal coming through. You see how he adjusts the level. Like, that's step by step. But doing something like that is a lot of time. So it's hard to do in these types of formats that we're doing. But we will do more of these in the future, and we will cover a lot more stuff. And hopefully we'll be able to help some folks out that might be looking for some tips and answers on whatever it is that you're into when it comes to home recording and studio stuff. There's a lot to learn, but once you learn the basics and really get down to some of the stuff, and you just start by recording a simple track, just you and your guitar playing a guitar part, and then now I'm going to record a second guitar part, maybe just do a quick harmony. You don't even need to do drums and all these things, just to get used to using your software and then playing with some of the plugins like an EQ or something. And how do I add an EQ? Okay, I'll go into the mixer and I'll add it to this channel. Okay, so now I know how to do that. And let me adjust the signal here, the frequency in the EQ, and let me see what that does. It's by playing with that stuff that you're really going to, don't be scared. Like, you're not going to break anything. You're just playing around with stuff, and that's how you learn. All right, folks, thank you for joining me. It is 9:11 here, so it would be 8:11 Eastern, and wherever it is you are in the world, it's probably whatever time, but we've been going for an hour. I'm glad that everybody was able to join me. It's Monday night, the start of another week. We'll be doing this again next Monday, unless something happens. Sometimes I get busy with work and I have to do other things, but for the most part, I'm trying to stick to every Monday night, same time, which is 7 Eastern. And we will try to do a little bit more coverage of these types of things if that's of interest to you. And obviously, we do all kinds of other things. If I do get the Strat that I've been on the lookout for over a year now, and I haven't found it, we'll go through that process, and I'll show you that new guitar whenever that happens. And we will, cover music news if we have any music news to cover. And I'm sure we'll hang out together in some other shows. I watch all you. This is a great community, and everybody's got some great content out there and some great shows. So it's nice to hang out and chat with you guys on all kinds of platforms. So thank you very much. Yeah, Guitar Hack, see you Wednesday. Guitar Hack does a show every Wednesday. Metal Hippie does a show every Tuesday, Friday, Sunday. He's got a few shows. Check out his channel for his full schedule. He's got some great stuff. I'm sure I'm going to miss people. I know R2 and Dave Stafford have a great show on Friday nights. I'm just going down the list to make sure I didn't miss anybody here as far as shows. Anyway, just great community, and everybody in here, you have, a lot of people have some content to share, so check out each other's content and hang out on their shows, and that's what makes it fun, right? So there you go. So until next time, we will rock and roll and get through another week of craziness. We're almost out of this COVID thing, I hope anyway. It's looking a little better in some of these vaccine situations that are coming around. So let's hope that we can get back to some normalcy by the summer and get past this part of history. It's been a crazy, crazy year. Let's put it that way. So stay safe out there, folks, and we will talk to you next Monday. All right, take care.